Witness will be Meg Kerr from the Environment Council of Rhode Island.
Audubon's not going to like that I'm getting introduced that way. I'm with the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, and I also serve as ECORI's president. I just wanted to start by saying that last year we featured climate change for our Audubon report, which is a quarterly publication that Audubon does. Because climate change is already here and it's having a big impact on the wildlife that our 17,000 members really care deeply about. This is the first edition that came out, talked about the impact on birds. And we're already seeing impacts on birds. They're going to get worse as we move forward. Back in 2014, you all passed the Resilient Rhode Island Act, and that set goals for greenhouse gas reductions. And we're really not on target to meet those goals. This bill would make those goals mandatory and enforceable, and we really need that, the whole government accountable to those important measures. The bill is really long. I think it's like 40 pages long, and I wanted to point out that really the meat of the bill is only in the first 10 or 11 pages. That's where it sets up the structures for agencies to meet the goals. The rest of the bill is tweaks to existing statutes for the agencies themselves. So it's really just those first few pages that you have to pay attention to. The governor, when she campaigned, made a commitment to making the greenhouse gas reduction goals that are in the Resilient Rhode Island Act mandatory and enforceable. After she made that commitment, Amy Moses from the Conservation Law Foundation and I set up a meeting with the governor's staff and started meeting with them to talk about how we could accomplish that goal that she had put as a campaign promise. Last year we had a Global Warming Solutions Act. It was very detailed, instructing agencies exactly what they should do to meet the goals. And one of the requests that the governor's staff made was, leave it more open-ended. Our agencies are the experts. They'll know how to tweak the emissions from their sector to start reducing our emissions as a state. And if you look at the bill the way it's written right now, each of the agencies has deadlines for coming up with regulations, but we don't tell them how to write those regulations and what they should address. We rely on their expertise. Another request that the governor's office made is, listen, back in 2014 when we passed the Resilient Rhode Island Act, we created this executive climate change coordinating council with all of our agency leaders that get together and discuss climate change and how we're doing on resiliency and reducing greenhouse gas. The last year's bill didn't mention we call it the EC4, didn't mention the EC4 at all. They said, let's use these existing structures. So this bill, the way it's written this year, takes full advantage of the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council as a way for transparency and accountability as the state begins to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. They also asked us to use DEM as a coordinating agency, and the DEM director does have that authority in this bill the way it's written right now. So we feel like we have addressed a lot of the governor's concerns. The last concern that they've raised, and I know it is a legitimate concern, is that this takes staff and resources, and we know government resources are limited. And the thing I'd like you to think about when that question comes up is when a crisis is here, we find the resources to address it. And climate change really is a crisis. And we need to ask our agencies to redirect resources so they can really begin to set the state in the right direction to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions so we can take responsibility for climate change. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much. Our next witness will be Sheila Dorman, Nature Conservancy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Sheila Dorman. I'm here representing the Nature Conservancy, and not surprisingly, we strongly support this legislation. It's an important next step that Rhode Island needs to take in order to effectively address climate change. And really what this bill fundamentally does is it builds on the leadership from this committee from previous years by codifying the goals of the Resilient Rhode Island Act, which I have been really impressed to hear come up in almost every single bill you all have discussed this evening. we've been referring back to those goals that were established back 5 years ago now. The gap that we're trying to address here is that those goals are aspirational, frankly, at this point. We do our best to remind ourselves at every turn that they are the policy of the state to achieve those goals. By making them mandatory in state law, we're going to have to take that more seriously and really integrate into all of the work of all of our executive agencies a path forward for how we're actually going to achieve those goals in a timely fashion to address the looming threat of climate change. So I would just also offer, this is not a new concept at all. Massachusetts and Connecticut have had similar mandatory greenhouse gas reduction goals that give them the same ultimate targets for 10 years now. Both Connecticut and Massachusetts passed similar laws in 2008. And that law has worked very well in each of those states, and we can bring in examples from those places if the committee is looking to have more information about what that implementation looks like. But I would hope that would give the committee confidence in moving forward that those two states are both quite successful. One of the most important things that we'll need to address in the coming decades is greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector. And having this in state statute is really going to give us the right framework so that we're going to be able to make the fundamental changes to address that particular sector of emissions, which is the largest outstanding source that is not substantially regulated currently and not at the state level. It also explicitly directs the EC4, the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council, with making sure that as we're moving towards these goals, we are addressing the concerns of environmental justice in our communities. And making that explicit call out, I think, puts us again on the way that we're a path forward for equity for all of our residents here in Rhode Island. So thank you again for your consideration of this legislation. We discussed him that I would appreciate the representative's leadership in introducing the bill.
Any questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if this is the right witness, and maybe any of the witnesses could answer, but I see in the bill that the target time of the enactment of this chapter of the greenhouse gas emissions shall be reduced by 10% below the 1990 levels by 2020. How are we doing at this point? Does anybody know that answer?
The early targets we're on track for. It's the later targets that we don't have a clear path for.
So it's the 45% by 2035 that we
that
know
would be rough. In 2050, we don't have a straight line to 2050.
But we're on target for the 2020 because that's next
Pretty
year.
much,
Right? I mean, we're not far away.
And that was the easy one.
So
All right,
this is the
now
same
hopefully
goals.
we're on.
This is the same goals when we're looking
Right. Yes.
What was that?
So those are the same goals that were set in the Resilient Rhode Island Act.
Yep.
And
I know that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're doing pretty good on the early ones. It's the out ones that
Okay.
something is going to have to substantially change for.
All right.
Just to clarify,
Sure.
last year's version of the bill actually set later deadlines to give people more time.
Right.
One of the things the governor's office wanted was sticking to the Resilient Rhode Island goals, so they specifically requested that we keep the 2020
Okay.
deadline in there, so they're aware of that.
Oh, thanks, Amy.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next witness will be Michael Bowden, Clean Water Action. Michelle. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Michael.
You don't want to go down that road right now.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Michelle Bowden. And I'm speaking on behalf of Clean Water Action and our 20,000 Rhode Island members. We support this bill because it makes our emissions goals mandatory and enforceable. The administration has committed to establishing these mandatory and enforceable goals. However, they need guidance and authorization from the General Assembly in order to move forward. The Rhode Islanders that we talk to every day are worried about their livelihoods, their homes, their beaches, and their way of life. It's time to take meaningful action to protect Rhode Island. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your support of the Global Warming Solutions Act.
Any questions? Michelle, thank you, and sorry for.
No
Michael.
Not the first time.